designing a skirt. First off, I need to create a new layer. I'm going to rename it as skirt. So I have to decide what length my skirt is going to be and what type of skirt. So let's say it's a high-waisted pencil skirt, which makes it easy if we are going to design it. So I'm going to take out the fill and I'm going to change my stroke. Now the color that I'm looking for, I'm going to open up my default swatches, open up web, and I'm going to save this pink. So my stroke is going to be pink, so I selected this color in my stroke, and I'm designing in a 1 point. So I generally like to do it quite thin with a 0.25 stroke. So within my skirt layer, I can change again the color to whatever color I like. I'm going to select my pen tool and I'm going to trace out my skirt. So again, I'm going to start off at the center front. This is going to be to the edge of my waist, and that's a straight line, and I'm going to go to around this curve. So first curve would be something over there. So again, I click and I hold and I drag to create my curve. Now you'll see my second curve isn't necessarily going precisely the way that I want it to. You can then click again and see whether that curve is going to work for you. In this instance it does. And then my last curve, and let's say I'm going to end my curve just above the knee, and so that curve, it doesn't end quite well, so I have to click on that anchor and I have to stop my last curve over there. Okay, so that's my first section, and I'm just going to have a straight line. So this is going to, I can either hold in shift or I can just, it's going to give me a straight line automatically over there. So that's the first section of my skirt. Remember, then I have to transform and reflect. So transform, reflect, and I want to preview, and that looks good. And I'm just going to copy and I'm just going to move it over with my arrow keys on my keyboard so that it sits on that edge over there, and that looks fine. Okay. So remember, then I have to join these two sections. So direct selection tool, anchor point, direct selection tool, anchor point, and a Control J. I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to go down to the end. And this is direct selection tool, holding shift, direct selection tool, holding shift, and Control J. Okay, so that is the front of my skirt. If I would have colored that in, let's say with the blue, and that would be my skirt. So, and I'm going to have my stroke 1 point, and I'm going to change it then to black, and my stroke is going to be black. Okay, so this is my skirt in the front. If I take away my template, that is pretty much what it's going to look like. Now, the reason that we've got a front and a back design is that we can obviously have the back of the design shown. So how do we do this? Well, first off, I'm going to decide whether I've got a zip on the side or on the back. So if it's on the back, I obviously would have to have a center back seam, or if I've got a zip in the side, I'd have to have a side seam. So for this instance, I'm going to decide to have a zip in the center back, which we will then draw in on the back side. Okay, so all I do is with my selection tool, with my skirt selected, I'm going to right click, I'm going to say transform, and I'm going to reflect, and I'm going to make a copy, and all I'm going to do is with my arrow keys on my keyboard I'm just going to take it to the right, or I can select with my mouse and holding shift, and it's going to go directly to there. So you can see this is the back of my skirt. Now what do we need to do? Well, I've just shown my guides so that I can see where I have my center back, and I'm going to put in one line. So I'm going to take out my fill. I've got one stroke, and I'm going to select my pen tool, and I'm going to select at the top, go straight down, because if you put in a zip you have to have a seam going straight through the item. So there we go. So that would be my center back seam. And how do we indicate a zip? Well, so generally your zip would go to the widest point of your body, which would be your hips. So I have to put in a stopper like we've done in KLR. I think you've done 110. And then we need to put in a zipper handle. So this is my stopper, indicating where my zip is going to stop in the widest part of my body, which is the hip. And then I'm just going to create a little triangle, something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. So just indicating my zipper handle. And as you can see, that is a skirt. Now if, for instance, you don't like the way that it looks, it's really plain, we can always create a print for this design. How do I do a print? Now with my pen tool selected, let's say for instance I want to create a flower. Now I'm not good at drawing, so I'm just going to make a little flower, something like this, and whatever way you like to create your little flower you can. I'm just doing a quick random something over here, just to give you an idea of what you can do. And then the last one, this is really an ugly flower. Okay, so let's say that's my flower, which is, it's way too big. It's way too big print for this design or for this dress. So let's say something like that. So you'll see what I did is with my selection tool, I've selected all together. I've grouped them, so right click group, so that if I move one, I move everything together. And then you can, so remember, you generally want a uniform scale down, up or down. So to do that, you hold in shift and you scale up or down. So for this instance, I'd like to have my stroke a certain width, and that is my little flower that I'm going to be using. So how do I save this flower? So I don't want a black one though. I want, let's say, yellow. So how do I save this flower? So you have to group this object, and then I'm going to click on it with my selection tool, and I'm going to drag it into my swatches. You can see automatically it comes in there as the little item. So it's the same way as what you would have done your fill. You add the flower as a fill, but you can see then the issue with that is that it's going to have a white background. Now what if I wanted a blue background on there? Now this is how we do in our appearance window, where we have a stroke and a fill. So you can see our stroke is black, like we have over there. We've got fill, which is our little flower that we've just designed, or a pattern that we've designed. And then we want to add a second fill. Now just as like we use our layers, we've got fill with layers. Now I'm going to select fill over there, and I'm going to click on the duplicate selected item. Obviously I've selected the fill and I'm going to duplicate that one. So you'll see that I've got two fills. So the first one and the second one have the same little flower. But I want to change that to something else. So let's say I'm going to select my fill and I'm going to click on that blue, and automatically you can see that I've got my first layer, which is the blue, and my second layer, which is the little flower. So if I want to do the same, I have to do the same on that one. So I click on fill, I say duplicate. So the first one I'm going to click on my blue, and my second one I'm going to click on my little flower. And you can see that there I've got a print on my design.